I'm very much delighted to invite our next speakers, Pavlo Sheremeta, the Minister of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine, Dmytro Shymkiv, Deputy Head of the Presidential Administration, and Dmytro, Head of Team of Advisors on the Regulation in the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine. As far as you know, doing business in Ukraine is not easy due to the huge number of regulatory procedures, long delays, and huge costs. Have to simplify all these procedures, have to reduce the costs, and have to push the regulation in Ukraine. We will talk right now with the announced speakers. And here I invite Dmytro Shymkiv, the Deputy Head of the Presidential Administration, and Dmytro. Прошу.
Thank you. We do Ukrainian, right? Okay. Пані та панове.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Dmytro Shymkiv. I'm a Deputy Head of the Presidential Administration responsible for coordination of reforms and also run the Executive Committee of the National Council of Reforms. Economy is that engine that drives the country. It's not in the best shape, and because for many years there were a lot of regulating, limiting bodies and regulations to regulation, regulatory acts to regulatory acts, 83 regulatory body which are trying to regulate the business, and they're trying to explain to business how to work. I would like to thank the team which was set up by the minister, Sheremeta, and then Pasco is running that group, because the issue of definition of what should be done with there is more than 1,000 regulatory acts and regulatory acts. It's not a simple task. We worked with the team in the end when we selected all priorities and what kind of draft laws should be brought to the parliament on cancelling regulations of the government or preventing certain practice. We have to understand how different the regulatory acts could influence on economic development, or how they can help business or limit business or create preferences for some, and how it should be structured qualitatively. I wanted to repeat, there is a tactics of three pairs: simplicity, transparency, and attractiveness. And we should make business simple. It should be transparent, and the government should cooperate with business. Should be transparent, and attractiveness, and business should be attractive to business, because investors, first of all, they are looking for attractiveness. So in this context, I would like to invite Dan to tell about all the work which was done and the very good quality of that work. Thank you. Good afternoon. Daniel Pasco. I'm run the team of advisors. We are working on the regulation. It's also leader of the initiative of professional government, which united all the graduates from foreign universities to help Ukrainian government. I would like to ask who knows here what the regulation is? Raise your hands. 10%. We also didn't know, but now we know it better. And I will tell you about the regulation. Before I tell you about that, I wanted to tell you, I would like to thank Pavlo Sheremeta, first of all, that he sincerely wants to change Ukrainian economy for the better, and because of his vision and because of he attracts young people, brings young people with foreign education to his ministry. And I would like to thank Dmytro Shymkiv that from the very first day in the administration, he started to integrate everything on the regulation in the presidential administration. I would like to thank the team on the regulation, Mikhail Bolonsky, Nikolai Gadai, Yelena, Andrei Gajaman, and the team who free of charge working for 3 months and did the work you will see. Now let's come to the issue of deregulation. Because the majority of you doesn't know about much about deregulation, I'll start with the definition. This is the process of improvement of business climate. This is get rid of barriers that the state created for business, cutting the number of reduction of licenses, procedures, inspections, and other check-in bodies, and simplification of all the procedures, simplification of administration of taxes, and cutting tax pressure. And in the end, the regulation of business in Ukraine should, in the end, after the regulation, it should be easy to make business in Ukraine. You can see that on the site Easy Business in UA. The main issues, the main points. When we started to work on deregulation, and we faced the fact that many organizations worked on that, so we systemized all experience they on deregulation before us, and we used what's experience of efficient bank, IFC, European Bank, ABG, and many other organizations. And we had an interview that more than 100 organizations, representatives of associations, think tanks, who helped us to define key problems for business, where those points are, where corruption flows are, where those barriers for business. And we had about 1,000 of the regulatory initiatives, and now we organize them, and we have about 800 pain points, and those are the regulation initiatives, and we split them into two blocks. And the first, general economic issues that has influence on all the business in the country. There are about 400 things to be done. Also, we took 6 industries, key industries, and there are 400 initiatives to these industries. In the process of development of strategy of the regulation was to define a priority. All 800 things cannot be done. At the same time, every deregulation initiative, that is a separate process of changing the legislation, allies, enemies, so all cannot be done at the same time. The main task we faced is to define, to decide, to prioritize what should be the first and what should be not done at all. The main criteria is economic effect, all economic efficiency. Everything was calculated as to economic efficiency. On this schedule, on this chart, you see the majority of deregulation initiatives. From the first thing, corruption flows, which come out from concrete regulatory barriers. Second, number of or possible reduction of state spendings if we check the problem, solve that problem. And the third, growth of economy. The majority of corruption flows are in construction field. The majority of too much of spending of the state is in permission system and in the system of licenses. And the biggest, the highest potential is in food industry. At present, all experience, all key deregulation initiatives there on the website, Easy Business in UA. It's not a closed document. It's not an internal document. Everything is public. Everything is easy through the platform, like to speak directly to Ukrainian business. Every user can leave a recommendation, a comment on the problem they face. Every user can keep a track on which stage there is the regulation initiative is, and through that platform, everybody could find important issues, and to decide what to do after that. Now let's be more concrete. Key results of this strategy. If to speak about general economic deregulation initiatives, we measured the whole economic effect. It's about 86 million hryvnia. Reduction of corruption is 64 billion. Current reduction of spending is by 24 billion. That is about all gold reserves of National Bank of Ukraine. Without any loans, we could, if we reduce these barriers for business, we could get those that we could double our gold reserve. We have permission system. The goal is to reduce the number of licenses by 100. To cut time business spends to get permissions by 2 times. tax system to reduce the number of taxes down to 9, to reduce, to simplify administration of these taxes, to custom clearance. There should be one shop window, and we should get rid of corruption there. We should simplify procedures. The technical regulation issues. This is adaptation of all technical regulation to EU standards. The system of control, and we'd like to reduce the number of controlling bodies from 79 to 32, and to reduce the controlling functions by 40%. Now, if you speak about separate industries, and so you have a question, why we selected 6 industries: food industry, agriculture, construction, electricity, oil and gas, and IT. We analyzed all Ukrainian industries by 4 criteria. The first one, share in GDP. The second, speed of growth and the number of jobs. And the fourth criteria, level of export. On the basis of these 4 criteria, we identified these 6 the most important industries for Ukrainian economy. In food industry, 15 initiatives that are launched. They are on our site, Easy Business in UA. The main goal of all these 16 initiatives is to harmonize Ukrainian legislation to EU requirements. That will allow exports to grow supplies to EU. That will add to 30 billion hryvnia to GDP, and that will reduce corruption by 7 billion hryvnia a year. Agrarian sector. Here the main goal is to get rid of corruption. Why agriculture inspections became a nightmare for every agricultural producer. That should not happen. As a result, we believe that the economic effect will be 7 billion hryvnia, and construction will be reduced by 7 billion hryvnia. Construction, the most corrupted industry, one of the most corrupted industries. Why in New York? They spent 15 days to get construction documents in Ukraine, more than 200 days. And on every stand there is a corruption machine, picks up money from construction companies. If to introduce deregulation, then we will save 21 billion, and 28 initiatives on Easy Business in UA. It will improve our rating on how easy it is to make business. And then Ukraine will join 20 best states. Energy sector. We need to liberalize market, and the main component, the main problem, 12 billion hryvnia of corruption, and all details on the Easy Business in UA. Oil gas. The main goal in oil and gas is simplification. The process of mining and search. The main task is to diversify energy sources in Ukraine. We have our gas and oil. We need to simplify the process of mining and search. And information and IT. The main task here is to integrate Ukrainian IT into international industry. Again, all details. 14 first initiative are on the site Easy Business in UA. We have to speak about inspection expected bodies. So we need to reduce the number of them and the number of spenders from the budget, and to cut the reduce number of functions. We should cut off redundant functions. Thank you for your attention. Now, I'd like Minister Sheremeta to tell you briefly what he thinks about deregulation. Please. Good afternoon. Thank you, Daniel. My vision coincides, is the same. Now, it's the most difficult part is to introduce that. I wouldn't like to take a lot of your time, because I wanted here or using other forums I wanted to say about something, those things which are done, not what is planned to be done. What is planned? Colleagues did a lot of work, and they told you, we know clearly what should be done, and now a real battle begins. And if you are on the side, you see that that's how we position it, and we would like to count on the support of those interested parties, of those stakeholders who would like to simplify doing business in Ukraine. I would like to thank the team, and probably questions will be to them. Please, Daniel, come back. Questions? Your concept. Does it provide deregulation of the market of meteorological services? And because 89% of the market belongs to the state. As far as I remember, there is such an initiative. I don't remember if it belongs to priorities. Economic effect from this initiative was lower than among other initiatives, but I could be wrong. Look, go to the site and Easy Business UA. But in general, about the regulation initiatives, I wanted you to analyze the whole list and then ask questions. I wouldn't like to go into details of every deregulation initiative because there is a special plan, separate round about there are laws or legislation which is under development or is already developed. I wanted to add, thank you very much for coming and thank you for your question. And I see that you want to find the truth in this field. You know that this is a very complicated and there was a lot of corruption there. And I spoke at the conference of heads of institutes of standardization and methodology, and my message to them was very simple. If they hear any proposal about any corruption scheme, and we have to speak clearly about any corruption scheme, they are not coming from my office in the ministry. And then, if they hear that, I told them, go directly and urgently to the prosecution. If I hear about that something in your field, I do the same. I think it's honest, it's correct, it's fair. Yesterday, the delegation with was in Moscow, and there were negotiations on association with the EU. Are there results? You're right. I was not in that delegation. I have not seen them yet, so I don't know. My question is to Dmytro Shymkiv. What are the obstacles for the development of IT? How do you plan to deregulate it? And could you explain the laws that were passed in the parliament that allowed to close mass media, etc., etc.? Could you give your explanations? Let's do this. As to IT and deregulation, in my opinion, it is one of the interested which is least regulated. That's why its development sometimes chaotic. It creates additional jobs, but do they give a lot of enough to the budget and take into consideration investments into education of those who work in IT sector? As to IT, first of all, there should be speed technologies of communication. We speak about 3G, and I believe that very soon we will see the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers about 3G introduction. We expected the decision from them because of the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers. Some things don't go easy. As to laws passed yesterday, today we speak about deregulation, not about political or events or other events related to what's going on in the East. We're waiting for a decision of the Cabinet of Ministers. How soon do you expect to achieve sensible, obvious results from introduction of sanctions of Ukraine against Russia, and where there will be the most obvious results? As far as I know, the decision about sanctions and the law on sanctions was approved in the first reading. It doesn't mention any concrete country. It says countries aggressors. We know who that is. So there is a general law which is not approved yet. After it passes through the parliament, the mechanism which it has in the first reading, that the Council of Security and Defense will make the decision, and there will be a lot of if those decisions will be taken, that I could answer your question more concretely. Tomorrow, probably it will be passed in the second reading. Experts, economists among MPs, they say that they don't have economic calculations as to losses of Ukrainian enterprises in case some sanctions are introduced. What could you answer to such comments? To such comments, I would say two things. First one, it was obvious, it was clear to me that the law would be passed on Tuesday, but it's not. It didn't happen. So it's very... I wouldn't try to predict Ukrainian politics. The biggest losses Ukraine gets, it's not economic losses. We'll lose our lives every day and every night, and that is calculated by tens and economic calculations from sanctions. I wouldn't say it doesn't make sense even to speak about them. Is the time frame for the program, and when could we get first results? Or if we don't see them, we could assess. Thank you for your question. Very correct question, because it was just the first step, the easiest. We identified what should be done. Now we have to start doing it. And there are two problems here. The first one is practical and every deregulation initiative, there is a strong enemy. It could be a state public body, and they don't want to lose their powers, or public servants who would like to lose their job, or corrupted people who wouldn't like to lose their corruption flows. So there will be a big opposition. Somewhere less, somewhere more. And the second problem, that the majority of deregulation initiatives should go through the parliament. You see how efficient the parliament is as to necessary laws for the country, including more necessary. How difficult for them to do that. Because of this parliament, it's impossible to speak about a time frame. If the parliament is efficient and if there is support in the parliament, then this work, the first stage, could be finished less than in a year with the support of the parliament. What is the first stage? The first stage, list of the first deregulation initiatives, 200 deregulation initiatives, and they are already on our website. I would like to add, because during the meeting of the Council of Reforms, the President asked quite concretely, we discussed the issue of the deregulation. Yesterday, the President, as a result, he spoke to the government. He asked to speed up all the processes which are presented here, because that's very important, and that's when we started the 14 first initiatives. They could be introduced quite quickly, but somewhere there are some regulations of the Cabinet of Ministers of some actions were cancelled and the laws were passed, and some laws are already in the parliament. In some cases, there are some three versions of that law. Well, sometimes there are no, we don't have a draft law, and so there are a lot of issues, and the team also studied who or the opposition, who the level of opposition to different initiatives, and all of that means speed. Does the president have political value? He has, but for that, there should be the parliament which will vote for the regulation. I have a question to the minister. Director General of Fabric and Enterprise, Corby. I have no doubt that you are sincere when you say that corruption initiatives do not come out from your office. I don't doubt that there is a lot of difficult work to do for your team, and there will be an opposition. Here's a question. During these 5 months, how many officials in your ministry were punished by you? I mean, somebody was dismissed or kicked out. How many of such officials, how many of such cases were in your ministry? I don't know whether you are informed or not, but I sent letters to you about recent regulation that was prepared in your ministry, and it was about benefits, and corruption are there, and if that there was your name under that draft law. Was there my signature? There was. Anybody can write. I have not received. It was on your website. There was a discussion of the draft law. I wrote a request to you because in every line there is just crap, because initiative of that regulation of the Cabinet of Ministers and the order of the Cabinet of Ministers of the Prime Minister is mentioned by 2010. So it's impossible to harmonize our legislation with the EU, and there are a lot of questions to which I have not received an answer. How many staff of your staff was punished? Pay attention to that draft regulation of the Cabinet of Ministers, and Which draft law? What are you talking about? It's about tax benefits, tax exemptions according to tax code 197.1 for certain goods. It's about diapers for kids. The draft law works for two importers who they don't allow to develop a production in Ukraine. We had a meeting with Mr. Maksuta, and during that meeting, I gave documents which show that as long as they have that benefit, they will take out accuracy from Ukraine. It will be not beneficial to produce in Ukraine because local national producers we have to buy raw materials and we pay already VAT and the code obliges you to include that VAT and to sell cost. So our goods will never be cheaper. Transnationals who are present, they they have one factory in Russia and one in Poland. So Ukraine is taken just as a territory. They are against that because as soon as that norm is accepted, then in 10 years, they were brought as medicine and with a zero custom fee. So that is, and they don't want to pay even 7%. So my question is about that draft law. They're trying to push it through the parliament, and there were no economic. Maybe you'll find time for personal meeting. I spoke to the ministry and I would show you those documents. How many people will come as punished by you? I don't understand. Should we speak about diapers or people who should wear? I read your letters. Thank you. I'm surprised if I send them to the department so that I know about the meeting the first deputy minister had on these issues, and I don't believe there is. You can say that we don't pay attention to your request as to changes in the ministry. Two deputy ministers were dismissed, and I replaced one more. He went. So 4 or 5 heads of departments were replaced or will be replaced. Technical regulation department, we changed it completely. Now we suggested to the cabinet of ministers a new regulation about economic development. It will help to recognize the ministry. We believe that efficiency of the ministry could be improved substantially through brand new people. What you see here, this is the team here. This team functions on the level of advisors, and they could exhaust their potential because now they have to work not as on that level, but as heads of departments. So I plan the organization of the ministry. First of all, I have to simplify and reduce the number of people working for the ministry, and to preserve the salary fund, and we could substantially improve the salaries, and because of that, and patriotism, we could invite the best professionals. We have the next speaker. We have no more time for questions. Thank you very much. The next briefing will be in 3 minutes.